Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down the college football semifinals, which take place Thursday and Friday. Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, man of the people in the room. G Money Grant Mitchell, how you doing?
I am cold. I don't know what it's like where you are, Tanner. We have 10 inches of snow on the ground right now. So I spent the night at my girlfriend's, drove back home so we could record the podcast. Clearing the car off at 6 a.m. in the morning was just the worst thing in the world. I didn't bring boots with me. I had my Air Force Ones. I was walking through the 10 inches. I got my socks and my shoes were all wet. I had to stand outside, scraping the windshield off and everything. It was a bad start to the morning.
I ran this morning and my knee to my waist was numb. Could not feel it at all. So
Did you wear shorts?
No. I wore pants. It was shockingly cold this morning. I had been in Florida for the past month basically. So I was really cold today running in Boston.
Yeah, when I was training, I ran track in college and trained for the marathon and everything. When I was doing all of that, just because it snows, just because it's freezing rain, you're on hurricane watch. What doesn't mean you get the day off. You still got to go out there. You still got to do your thing. And so I remember those days where it's 10 degrees, real feel of 5, and it's better throw the hat, throw the gloves on. We got to go outside and run.
But with that being said, I'd rather do that than run on the treadmill. I hate the treadmill.
It blows my mind that a lot of casual people who are casual to running, like running on the treadmill. It's the most boring thing in the world.
I did it for a while and I kind of enjoyed it because I never really liked it. And then there was one day where I was on this. I'm like, this is stupid. Get me off this treadmill. I'd rather run outside in the cold or the rain because it's just easier. It's mentally, you have more to look at. It's better experience.
It's also more rewarding too. I was kind of joking about wearing shorts, but there were days where I did run in shorts in the snow. I would have a jacket, gloves, hat, and shorts. And it's mentally rewarding. It's mind numbing being on the treadmill. Not only are you getting to look at just the general surroundings, but I think there's a larger sense of accomplishment by the time you finish.
Oh, 100%. And you know what's given me a sense of accomplishment, Grant?
What's that?
The college football playoff. Picking the games for the college football playoff, which is exactly what we're going to do on today's show. But before we do that, tell them why they need to check out the World Sports Network. The people are watching, Grant. We got a lot of viewers right now.
Yeah, the people are watching, and Tanner and I see it. We appreciate it. We hope that you guys are hitting the subscribe button. We're watching the number go up, but we got a lot more views than we did subscribe. So, hey, if you want to stick around, you enjoy the content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Like Tanner said, if you guys are into sports betting in any shape or form, that includes the college football playoff. That includes the NFL playoff. That includes the NBA, soccer, whatever you can think of. Go to WSN.com, the World Sports Network. Tanner, myself, whole bunch of other people, a team of experts. We talk about previews of games. We give you the latest in betting news, analysis, insights, all that stuff. We got promo codes so you can redeem them at sportsbooks, get some more opportunities. If you're into sports betting at all, WSN.com is the place to be.
Oh, it definitely is the place to be. And you know what? The dumbest chirp I'll say that people do consistently that I see on every pod is podcast equipment is too cheap. Podcast equipment's too cheap. Who are these guys? Bro, you have a YouTube channel without a profile picture. Bro.
And you're watching us.
Yeah, you're watching. I love the comments. The comments are engagement, which is what we want. But come up with a better chirp than another example of podcast equipment being too cheap. Loser chirp.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Tanner and I love that you all are here, but so many people comment so many things, and one comment will contradict what another comment said that we said. And the reality is Tanner and I have access to the analytics. We see the average watch time. Last episode was 50 minutes. The average watch time was 5 minutes. So there's no way all 50 commenters knew everything we said in that episode. We appreciate you guys being here. We will interact with you, but it is just funny. Someone accused you of being an SEC defender, but then someone also accused you of being an Oregon defender. And then there was a whole bunch of back and forth. It's we got to make up our mind. What is the narrative that we're pushing here?
I would say I am an SEC defender. This is just a down year for the SEC. And, and I also said too, like people are trashing Oklahoma for losing to Navy, but then saying Texas was just in the Big 10 or Big 12 last year. So you can't have it both ways. If you want to count Oklahoma for losing to Navy in a bowl game as an SEC team, you can't say that Texas, well, they weren't even in the SEC last year. So like that, I'm just calling it how it is, people. That's what I'm out here doing.
This has been a very interesting year just for narratives, right? Like, obviously, there was the whole thing about Indiana doesn't deserve to be there, and then Indiana gets blown out by Notre Dame. How do we not have Ole Miss? How do we not have South Carolina, Alabama? And then we see what the SEC does in its bowl games. And then Georgia, granted, have a backup quarterback, but Georgia's out, and now we're going to get Notre Dame or Penn State in the national championship game. It's like nothing has gone exactly according to one narrative. So everybody's trying to figure out the story that defines the season.
I think college football fans are the most fickle fans you'll ever find. Like Alabama fans, you guys are like jumping for joy that Jalen Milroe is leaving your program. And don't get me wrong, the guy is not good. Like I saw that. I was at the Reliquis Bowl. This man staggers his feet when he is throwing. He keeps them even when he's passing. And I'll tell you what, or when he's running. And I'll tell you what, Michigan knew what he was doing on every single play. So no wonder he didn't score when he's tipping his freaking hand every time and fumbling and throwing interceptions. But this man, Jalen Milroe, was the most improved quarterback in the country last year, was one drive away from taking Alabama to the national championship. And now Alabama fans are throwing a party that he's going to the NFL. So I just like everyone's got to pick a side here. Like pick a side, stick to it. Don't be so flip-flop.
And I know you've also got a little bit of a bone to pick with Texas fans too.
It's not necessarily Texas fans, because I think Texas fans think like I do in this regard. But I don't know if you've seen this media. This is a media narrative. This is people talking, getting something to talk about. I have seen more people throughout this entire college football playoff in the last week, in the last 2 weeks, say Texas has no chance to beat Ohio State. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But then they counter it with, if they would bench Quinn Ewers and put Arch Manning in, they would have a chance to win. Arch Manning gives them a better chance to win, blah, blah, blah. This game, Steve Sarkisian's livelihood, his ability to feed his young child is predicated on winning football games. If he does not win, he gets fired. Don't you think Sark would put in Arch Manning over Quinn Ewers if he felt Arch Manning gave him a better chance to win the game? Quinn Ewers and Steve Sarkisian, there is no loyalty there. He's not keeping his loyalty to a quarterback because he likes him. It is predicated on winning games. So there is no chance that Arch Manning gives Steve Sarkisian in Texas a better chance to win than Quinn Ewers in Sark's mind. So stop saying Sark's loyal to Quinn Ewers. Not the case. He needs to feed his kid. He's got a little kid. Got to feed him. Got to win games.
I always think it's hilarious when there's situations like this where fans will be in YouTube comments saying, "Why aren't you giving this guy more tick? Why aren't we running screens on third?" Like, the coach is in practice every day. He knows what he has at his disposal better than anybody except for maybe the other coaches on his roster, maybe the position coaches. And they're giving him input. If they thought, to use this example, if the Texas coaches believed Arch Manning, who they're paying an arm and a leg for just to keep on the bench, if they believed he would give them the best chance of winning, he would be out there. I've got a friend who actually, he doesn't work in sports betting anymore, but he used to. He's a very smart guy, very analytics-driven guy. And he's betting on Texas plus 5.5 against Ohio State. And his reasoning was he thinks there's going to be a lot of Arch Manning in the red zone. And we know about the struggles that Texas had in the red zone. And what I said was, I think it's a thought that everybody wants to believe is a good idea. Everybody wants to believe if you get Arch in the red zone, he can run it and he can pass it. That's going to open up more opportunities. Texas has been in situations where they needed to win. You don't think there was a higher pressure, higher leverage moment than overtime, down a touchdown against Arizona State? If they had some special package that they were saving until they needed it, we would have seen it. The fact that we have not tells you Quinn Ewers is the guy for the rest of the season in pretty much every situation.
I think Arch is fantastic. I think he's going to be great. I think it helps that his last name is Manning. But you got people out there, it's like Arch is the best thing ever. Arch is the best thing ever. What Arch hasn't done anything in college football to prove he is the best thing ever yet. He's had some good games against bad teams when he started. But when I've seen, I don't know if you noticed this, recently when they have brought him in the red zone, rare times, I mean, I can think of a couple times in my head, he's gotten abused. He can't run over anybody. He has gotten abused by the front seven. Maybe that's because they're not blocking, and he can run better than Quinn. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think he gives you that much of an edge in the red zone to a point where you become this elite red zone team if you're Texas.
No, if Quinn Ewers, or sorry, if Arch Manning was Jalen Milroe, and I'm not talking about a career longevity perspective, I'm just saying his ability to run the ball. Like Milroe is a running back who can pass it pretty much. You know,
He can't pass
really,
it.
he's real well.
He
Can throw it better than most running backs, is what I'm saying. Like I'm saying he is a quarterback who can actually act as a running back. That's not who Arch Manning is. Is he more deft of foot? Is he more fleet of foot than Quinn Ewers is? Sure. But like he's not extremely fast. He's not that big. He's not extremely elusive. Good mobility for a quarterback. But if your goal is to get to the red zone just so you can run him, go Wildcat at that point. Like get a real running back in there.
Stop trashing Quinn Ewers. Like everybody, Quinn Ewers has done nothing but win games at Texas. Is he the best quarterback in the world? No, he's not. Is he a good quarterback? Yeah. Has the drop off from the NFL draft to going back to college another year happened? Yeah, it has. Is he going to be at Texas next year? Probably not. But the thing with Quinn Ewers is this kid has done nothing wrong. Like he's just won games. He's kept his mouth shut and won games. I don't get why there's so much hate around him. Do you?
No, I don't. And I saw a comment actually on our last episode, which I don't know if you saw, but I thought it was really good. And they basically said we were discussing Quinn Ewers on that 4th and 13 and how didn't play a great game up to that point. Texas's offense didn't look great, but when he needed to make the throw, he stepped up and he did it. And you said you were talking about his emotions. He's never too high, he's never too low. It's very even keeled. The comment said he's very Eli Manning in that regard. He's not an incredible talent. He's gonna make mistakes. But Eli, you could never really tell what was going on. He was never that excited. He was never depressed. He was always just who he was. And we said, Eli obviously won one of the most improbable Super Bowls ever. So I think that was actually a very good comparison.
So should we talk about Texas, Ohio State first, Grant, and then move in? I know that's going opposite the schedule, but we're on the topic. So should we stay on?
As well.
We go to Penn State? Might as well. Okay. Sark's pump-up film, his pump-up films that he's going to show this week. He has so much material to choose from of people dragging Texas through the mud all week. If you can go out there and find a show, find a podcast, I don't care if it's from any level of media, from ESPN all the way down to a 10-year-old talking in their basement. There is not anybody out there really taking Texas to win. Not only not taking Texas to win, not taking them to cover, and saying that Ohio State is going to beat them by multiple touchdowns. And based on the first 2 games of the college football playoff, that would be an accurate prediction. And I think talent-wise, Texas is obvious. They're obviously a talented football team. Are they as good as Ohio State? Hell no. Can they beat Ohio State? Yeah, anyone can win on any given day in college football. But the only reason I would say that Texas may have a slight chance, and people in the comments are going to say, like, I'm picking Texas to win, and I don't think I can pick Texas to win the game. I want them to. But the combination of nobody picking you to win the game with a talented football team that has not achieved their potential, playing at home in Dallas, which is going to be a split crowd, but they're still in Dallas. And if they can somehow go out and get a lead in the game and survive the first quarter, I think they can play with Ohio State. If they go down 14-0 the first quarter, it's done. But if they can survive the first quarter, which nobody has done yet, let's make Ohio State play a different style of football than we've seen them play in the past 2 games. that means they got to survive the first quarter. So I think Sark's highlight films this week could change this team's mentality.
So as you know, I do some modeling, some projections, things like that. And I have a college football model. And since conference championship weekend, so conference championships, first 2 rounds of the college football playoff, 15-2 against the spread, 15-2 on the money line. So this thing's been pretty accurate. Before Ohio State played Oregon in the last round, I had Ohio State favored by 8. And I was looking at that like, okay, that seems crazy. That makes me very uneasy to see that I'm saying a team is more than a touchdown better than the only undefeated team in America who they already beat. Look what happened. They won by 20 points. So, this is an example of technology can see what the human eye can't. So, okay, we move ahead to this week. I punch in all the numbers. We get to Ohio State versus Texas. I have Ohio State favored by 10. And same thing. Right. It makes me uneasy because I know Ohio State at its best, it's not even close. They are the best team in America. Hand them the trophy. They are the national champion when they're at their best. Like you said, the question is, can they be at their best every time? Well, the answer we know to that is no. Like they lost to Oregon, 1-point game, cool. But then the season-ending loss to Michigan, an unranked Michigan team, shows you they're not always going to be there. Meanwhile, Texas's only 2 losses this season have been against Georgia. And say what you want, it's a conference rival. It was also Texas's first year in the SEC. You know, Georgia didn't want to give up that throne. And Georgia's defense was spectacular in both games against Texas. So I think almost people are looking at Ohio State saying, is Jeremiah Smith going to be running down the field open? Is Travion Henderson going to hit these huge runs? I want to know, talking about the guy we were talking about just a second ago, what does Quinn Ewers have for this Ohio State defense? This is a time where you need his experience to show up because Ohio State, they can drop guys. They can get prone with 4. They can bring exotic pressures. They can do a whole bunch of different stuff. If you let Ohio State get out to that lead, like you said, even 7-0, if Texas gets the ball first and Ohio State goes up 7-0, I'm worrying. If Texas can execute early in the game, if they can get first quarter points on the board, that's where I think it really opens this up and we have a real game on our hands.
If I'm Sark, I'm taking the ball right away. I'm not deferring to the second half. I'm taking the ball. Like I'm sending a message because if you can go up 7-0 on them or 3-0 even and get some points on the board, that's something nobody's been able to do. It just changes the narrative of the game. It's like we're here. My one thing from a betting perspective, just looking at the line here, Grant, we were talking about like where the line was. I don't think FanDuel ever got up to 6. I know DraftKings got up to 6. I know some other books, but I don't know if FanDuel did. It was like FanDuel was like plus 5.5 or plus 100. It's now down to minus 108. DraftKings is now back down to 5.5, minus 110. The world is on Ohio State. Like there's like 10%, 15% of the money in bets on Texas. Little reverse back to Texas here. How much does that play into your mindset coming into this one?
No, it's definitely a little bit scary too, because we've talked about this before. We all know what it is. You know, we all know to follow sharp money, not as the end all be all, but kind of as a guide. And right now there's 92% of spread money is on Ohio State on FanDuel, but this line isn't moving. So it's like, what's going on? Are the bookmakers that confident in Texas's ability? And, you know, I've been bigging up Ohio State. I've been doing it throughout this whole bracket. I have them beating Oregon. I have them winning the national championship. Texas has a team. I've said numerous times, I think Texas has the best defense in the country. We know that Quinn Ewers is experienced. And even though they're on their 4th string running back, they have been able to run the ball. You know, Quintravian Wiesner ran for 100+ yards in 4 of his last 5 games, excluding that Arizona State game. Of course, Texas had no run game to speak of in that Arizona State game. So I want to know if they're going to be able to establish that. I want to know if the offensive line is going to be healthy, and I want to know if Quinn Ewers is going to be able to use his experience. I have to lean Ohio State just like I did in the last round and just like most people are doing, but it does scare me that this line isn't moving.
I'm taking Texas. I don't believe in it, but I'm going to take Texas for the vibes. I think Ohio State's a much better football team. I think Ohio State playing to their top capability is by far the national champion. Don't even play the rest of the tournament. With that being said, though, Texas has some keys to victory in this game. You have to score first, or you have to get the first stop of the game. You can't, if Ohio State gets the ball in the first drive, which they're not, if Sark takes the ball, which I would think he takes the ball here and tries to make a statement, probably won't, but you can't let them score first, or you need to score first. That is the key. You have to go into the locker room in a one-score game. If you're down, you have to be getting the ball, which, assuming they get it first, they wouldn't, but you have to be tied or down one score to have a chance in this football game coming out of the locker room. And I think the fact that, like, this is just the game. If you're looking at how college football works, like, this would be the game Ohio State slips up in. You've dominated two teams. And this is a totally different landscape, too, than the past two games for Ohio State. They came to that Tennessee game at home, like, looking for blood, and they found it. Then you go to the next game, it's Oregon. Well, Oregon was kind of a sitting duck there. They hadn't played. You're going into a game that a team just dominated, have a lot of momentum. They beat you early in the season. Like that was a game Ohio State should have won. This is a Texas team that we're not going to get the fatigue break. They're ready to go. They're ready to play. They just had the come to Jesus moment last weekend on fourth down. They found a way to overcome that. If they come into this game, they play hard early and keep it close, we're going to see a different Ohio State team here, because it's just not the same game they've played the past 2 weeks, where Texas has been in those dogfights. So Texas needs to make it a dogfight to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, it's those off-field factors. And going back to me running projections and everything, I can't run numbers for that. How do you quantify Ohio State needed to be at its best to send a message against Tennessee? They needed to be at their best to beat the undefeated number one team in the country. Now there's the emotional letdown. Texas, like you said, 4th and 13, down 8 points, 7-8 points, whichever one it was. Their season was basically over. They came back from the dead, and they are here, and they were sent a message by Arizona State. This is not going to be easy. So how do you quantify that? Well, what are the numbers for that? Those are things that you can't quite feel. You can't reach out and grab it, but it is something that pulls you towards Texas. I will say, Sark, no more pre-kick speeches to Bert Auburn. That was my favorite part of the last round. Sark walks over to him, smiling. You can tell there's a bunch of love, gives him a huge hug. Bert Auburn walks out on the field. He's smiling. He's ready to kick the game-winning kick, and he misses. It was like
that. I liked it. I liked it. I think it's a coach. You got to know who your kicker is. Like Bert, he looked like he was feeling it. He looked like that was what he needed in the
Bert
moment.
Auburn looked like a happy little kid out on a field trip.
Yeah, I agree. So I can't necessarily hate on that. It doesn't. Now, if he makes the kick, like, that's the first clip you're showing on SportsCenter, and like, he missed the kick, Sark loves him up. He makes the second one, like, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So, like, I don't know if I can hate on Sark for that, but I highly would recommend not doing it now, that since he missed after what had just happened.
I'm not hating on him. Like, I'm just saying it's a known thing. If a kicker is going to take the game-winning kick, don't talk to them. Leave them in their world. Let them do their thing. I don't want to say anything good, bad, indifferent. I don't want to say anything that could mess up where they're at.
Now, besides your bet, Grant, who are you rooting for in this game? Like, I don't know if you're betting Ohio State money, obviously, if you were, but like, just as a fan, like, do you want Ohio State to win, or do you want Texas to win?
I want Ohio State to win, not because I like Ohio State more than Texas or anything, just because I like watching them play more.
I'd like to see Ohio State Penn State. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
Texas,
I think it's going to be fun. Whoever wins Penn State, Notre Dame, it's these programs that we know as some of the greatest in the history of college football, but like, they haven't quite been there recently. They're the top of tier 2, but they never ever get to tier 1. We're guaranteed to get one in the national championship, and they might win it all. It'll be cool whoever wins it.
All right, so let's move into the Penn State Notre Dame game. We are 110,000 strong, or whatever it is. I'm all over the Nittany Lions here, Grant. And Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is a very good football team. But again, media blowing Notre Dame this week. People saying, well, no, the SEC is, again, the SEC chirpers coming in here. I'll defend the SEC here. If Gunnar Stockton does not have the strip sack if Georgia doesn't give up a kick return for a touchdown, as bad as Georgia's offense was in the red zone, they're still winning that football game. So then you say that, and then you get the Notre Dame faithful coming in and saying, well, they still made those plays. Yes, they did still make those plays, but those are low percentage plays and low likelihood plays to happen in a football game. How many times does a kick return go for a touchdown? How many times does a strip sack occur in the final 45 seconds of the half that leads to a touchdown? A team scores 14, what is it? So 17 points, right? 17 points in like a course of a minute. How many times does that actually happen in a football game? It really doesn't. So if Penn State can just not turn the ball over, they should win the football game. That is my take.
So I agree with pretty much everything you said. The only thing I would push back on is if that stuff doesn't happen, I'm still not ready to declare Georgia a winner. I think it's an overtime game or like a last possession type game. I think it's nip and tuck. My initial reaction was to take Penn State, and we've been over the reasons why. I've got to say, I'm actually starting to lean Notre Dame a little bit more, just because the more I think about it, I dive into the numbers. Notre Dame's a little better with turnovers, little better getting quarterback pressure, little more explosive, gives up a few more explosive. It's like these teams match up very, very, very evenly. Notre Dame's just got a little bit of a fine margin. Now, the case for Penn State is, well, they've played Oregon and they've played Ohio State, so they know what it's like to take on the best teams in the country. And respectfully, Notre Dame, I don't think anybody would say Notre Dame's better than Ohio State, better than Oregon. So Penn State has that experience. They've been right there. They're also motivated. They know that they don't have to play Georgia. They know that they don't have to play Ohio State until the championship. Oregon's out of the tournament. They don't have to play Bama because they didn't make it. If there was a year for them to do it, it would be this one. But I balance that with the fact that, like I said, Notre Dame's a little bit better on the margins. And honestly, I know Marcus Freeman's a young coach. Marcus Freeman outfoxed Kirby Smart. He really did. That decision with the fake punt, bring the offense back out on the field. I don't think they were ever going to snap the ball, but they got Georgia to jump off sides. And once they did that, there was like 8, 9, 10 minutes, whatever it was. They just ran the clock down and they executed. They stuck to their system. I would feel a lot worse about Notre Dame playing from behind than I would Penn State playing from behind. But James Franklin's history of collapsing in big games, the attention to detail that Marcus Freeman has shown, I'm going to switch, and I am going to go with Notre Dame here.
Wow. I think this one just comes down to the same thing almost as Texas, Ohio State in a way. Like if you're Penn State, I do feel okay playing from behind by a touchdown. And Notre Dame's not going to get up by more than 10 points probably. Like that's just how Notre Dame's going to play this one. If Notre Dame were to go down by 10 points in this game, I don't feel as good about Notre Dame coming back as I do about Penn State. I do think Drew Allar is a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but I think he's good enough to make the throws. Penn State has some explosive receivers. Notre Dame's great on defense. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but if Penn State can just protect the football, I don't see the route to victory for Notre Dame as much. Because if I'm Penn State, I'm doing exactly what Georgia did on defense. They played a hell of a game. It's take away the run game and make sure you can limit Riley Leonard. And if Riley Leonard doesn't run for 90 last week, Georgia has a much better chance of winning that football game. So if Penn State can limit Riley Leonard, protect the front seven, I don't see Riley Leonard beating them with his arm in this game. And I don't think they're even going to try to do that. It sets up Penn State pretty well to win the football game.
Yeah, Drew Aller's got to make throws. That's what it is. If you look at what Penn State was able to do, SMU never really had a chance. And then if you look at the Boise State game, they couldn't stop Katron Allen, and then Nicholas Singleton had some big runs later in the game. I know Allar had the 3 touchdowns and they had some explosives, only completed like 50% of his passes. So if Notre Dame can take away the run so Allar doesn't have that support, then it's going to be on him. It's going to be on him to make some throws. And I don't know if you've seen this. Apparently, some people think he could be, if he declares for the draft, the number 1 quarterback off the board. So there are Drew Allar believers, and I'm not saying that he can't do it. Again, I'm just saying Notre Dame has been really good at bringing pressure. They blitz on like 48% of snaps. They were living in that Georgia backfield. Georgia's defensive line also did their thing, But Notre Dame's defensive line, we talked about it. The left tackle, you said, missed a lot of matchups. I think there were a couple protection breakdowns, and they're able to constantly bring pressure. I don't know that Drew Allar, he's not the most accurate guy in the world. And we saw it with Sam Darnold against the Detroit Lions. If somebody is breathing down your neck the entire game and you don't hit those first couple of throws, then your whole night's probably ruined.
Yeah, I think, the reason Drew Allar, I would say, is going to be a first-round pick if he did come out. He hasn't played quarterback that long. I think he's only played quarterback for a few years. And then you look at his physicality. He looks like Josh Allen, and he's only 20 years old. So there's reason to have hope for Drew Allar, especially he's coming back, if he does come back next season, which I believe he said he was going to come back. But you never know what happens when guys get some money thrown at him. But I like Drew Allar here. I think this game is going to be a very good game. Like Texas, Ohio State could get out of hand. It could be one of the greatest games we've seen, I think. But there's probably a smaller chance that it gets out of hand than this one. And this is going to be a tight back and forth game. Both teams play, protect the football, try to run the ball and see what they can do. But I do like Penn State, Grant. You like Notre Dame, so we're heads up on both. Again, I don't necessarily believe in the Texas pick, but I'm going to try to will them to victory a little bit, just like Sark's going to do this week with the pump-up speeches for him.
So speaking of Drew Allar real quick, I don't know if you saw this. Cam Ward is now, I think, a minus 135 favorite to be the first pick in the draft. How do you feel about that?
Well, Tennessee's drafting first, right?
Yep.
Listen, I've seen people that say Shedeur doesn't have a first-round grade. You seen that story come out the past few days?
I have. I've seen like 3 or 4 people say it.
Well, the Patriots are stupid, first of all. That's the reason that let's talk about picks for a second. I'll get back to the Cam Ward thing. Do you think Gerard Mayo knew he was getting fired before the game, and that's why he tried to go out and win it?
No,
I don't think he knew before the game either. I don't think he tried to win. I think teams are just going to try to win games. But he did stick it to the Patriots out the door. Will Levis is not the guy in Tennessee, obviously. There's somewhere for Will Levis to play football at. But here's the thing, and I know Tennessee has a good roster, but we saw that kind of with the Bears this year. If you don't fix all the problems in your organization, I don't care how good Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or anybody there. Will Levis, I mean, you could say that he had a lot to work on, but like it's not going to work if you don't have everything figured out from a team perspective before you bring in a young quarterback. So I like Cam Ward. I don't know if he's going to be successful. We don't know if Caleb Williams is going to be successful in the NFL because he's in a terrible organization.
Yeah, I think whoever goes to Tennessee is going there to die, unfortunately. Quarterback wise, like if Travis Hunter goes there, let's just say, as a wide receiver or defensive back, it's not a situation where like if your first year doesn't go well, your career is doomed. Like that happens to a lot of quarterbacks. They lose their confidence, teams give up on them, whatever. If you're a cornerback or receiver, you can survive 2-3 bad years and it'll all work out in the end. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Drew Allar, whoever it is, I don't see them having a good season in Tennessee. If we're doing a redraft right now and we look at the quarterbacks from last year, Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick in the draft. Jaden Daniels is the number 1 pick in the draft. Drake May is the number 1 pick. Bo Nix is the number 1 pick. Michael Penix is probably the number 1 pick. I understand that Cam Ward has upside. Shedeur has upside. I think these are guys that need to be in great situations to contribute. And if they are there, like if you were to put Shedeur in Miami 2 years ago, before all the problems, Tyreek just got there, all that. Within a year or two, I think he could have been a really good quarterback. I think he could have delivered with that speed around him. But do I view him going to the Titans or the Browns as a situation where we got the quarterback and everything changes, like a Joe Burrow, like a Jaden Daniels? I don't see that with these guys.
If I'm a quarterback, if I'm Shedeur or Cam Ward, like I'd rather go to New York, play for the Giants. Because I think Mara seems so fed up. I was listening to a press conference with him yesterday. It's like, it's got to change. If Dable doesn't start hot next year, they're going to lose. They're going to fire him in the middle of the season. I'd rather play in New York than I would in Tennessee personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, Tennessee is, as far as I can remember, not terrific organizational, not a terrific roster construction. I know they made the championship game, but that was the Derrick Henry 2,000-yard season. Mike Vrabel did wonders with that defense. I think they're kind of in limbo. Like Tennessee kind of went all in. Like, they signed a bunch of veteran free agents. They signed Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins and Tony Pollard and forget who on defense. Made the trade with the Rams to get D'Ernest Jones, and like, they made these moves to show they're all in, like what a contending team would do, except they have the number 1 pick in the draft. So it's like they can't figure out, are they rebuilding? Are they trying to win now? They don't have a direction.
And this was the year to win the AFC South too. Like,
Yeah.
if you couldn't win it this year, I mean, you look at the Texans, they're only going to get better. This was a down year for Houston and just the whole system there. But like, looking at Jacksonville, they're going to get better. That's going to be another team that's going to be a contender. So like, if you're the Titans, man, you got a rebuild coming. So I think Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I think you can really put any quarterback in any situation, but I'd rather take a 3rd-round quarterback and put him into a good situation. I think he's going to perform better than a 1st-round quarterback and put him into a bad situation.
And looking, this doesn't mean anything. Like, this isn't the end all be all, but I'm on CBS Sports right now just because I wanted to see what the order of the picks was. And they have Cam Ward as their 4th-ranked prospect. They've got Travis Hunter, number 1, Will Johnson, number 2, and Tet McMillan, number 3. So, the number 1 pick in the draft, according to these, isn't, even in the top 3 as far as actual prospects go. It's just because he is a quarterback, he would go first.
The Patriots fumbled the bag so hard. So hard. They would have had every team trying to trade up to take that 1 spot to get a quarterback.
And honestly, they could have, if Tennessee was still picking 2nd at the time, they could have strong-armed Tennessee. Even if Tennessee didn't want to trade up and like try to call their bluff, like, no way you're drafting a quarterback 2 years in a row. New England could have been like, no, we are drafting Cam Ward, or we're drafting Shedeur Sanders right now, and then we're going to figure out who we're going to trade between him and Drake May. They could have forced the team picking 2nd to trade for the 1st pick, but that's not a reality anymore.
Nope. Well, Grant, what's your college football final thoughts? Playoff final thoughts for the semis.
Playoff final thoughts are, I hope we get as many comments as we did in the last episode, because that was great, guys. Seriously, keep it up. We appreciate it. I think Ohio State, we've been over this. There's no doubt they're the best team at their best. Question is, are they going to hit that point? And like you said, I think Notre Dame, Penn State might just be the best game we get in this whole playoff.
Okay, that's ballsy. Should I give a pump up speech to the Texas Longhorns?
Do you want to do that today, or you want to save it for Thursday?
No, Thursday's NFL. We ain't talking college football Thursday.
Okay, so if you're Sark, what are you saying to the boys?
Wait, I got to get some music in the background.
Are you going to get a Matthew McConaughey speech, maybe?
Matt, do you think he's speaking to them this week? Or does he speak to them? Or he doesn't have any?
He's got to be speaking to them this week.
But does he have any, like, impact on them? Like, he's always there. It's not guys, Matthew McConaughey is coming in for a speech. It's like we see him every day. He lives there.
Lil Wayne was speaking to Colorado. So, like, I would assume Matthew McConaughey speaking to Texas.
I'd rather have a Matthew McConaughey pump-up speech than a Lil Wayne pump-up speech.
I would too.
All right, let's see. I gotta get the good music here. I got something in mind.
I would like a Wayne concert, but I would rather a Matthew McConaughey speech.
Wait, gotta get the ad. Gotta get the ad here. Yeah, imagine
you don't
if you
have YouTube Premium.
I don't have YouTube Premium. Who the hell is YouTube Premium?
You get no ads.
Yeah, I listen to Spotify. Who the hell YouTube? Who spends money on YouTube?
Me. I have YouTube Premium.
That's wild. Do you download? You can download videos with YouTube Premium.
Yeah.
You hear it?
Yes, I hear it.
All right, Steve Sarkisian. Let me paint the scene. He walks into the locker room and he puts on Josh Pate. Let's start with Josh Pate because I watched him yesterday. Josh Pate says, "I can't find an edge for the Texas Longhorns to win the football game." Boom. All right. Then he turns on some schmuck. Probably as many people will call us schmucks in the comments section. Turns them on. Texas has no chance to win the football game. Ohio State's going to win the football game. Everybody. Then you put somebody else on. Ohio State's going to win the game by 3 scores. And then the boys are foaming at the mouth right now. Foaming. And then he gets into a speech and he says, "Great moments are born from great opportunity." And that's what you have here on Friday night, boys. in the Cotton Bowl. That's what you've earned here on Friday night. One game. You just beat no talent Arizona State. You just beat Clemson, who shouldn't have been here. But you know what? Nobody believes in you right now. Nobody, nor should they. And you have the opportunity to go out and prove everybody wrong. You were all born to be playing in the Cotton Bowl tonight. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time, Ohio State, they're 2 fun games. Nobody believed in them 2 weeks ago. Look at them now. We can do that tonight. We can change that. We can make people not believe in Ohio State tonight. You go out, you score first, you win the game. Simple as that. You were all born to play for the University of Texas. Arch Manning, you're not touching the football tonight. Quinn Ewers, this is your time.
And if you don't win, we're taking the Hellcats.
Their time is done. It's over. I'm sick and tired of turning on every fucking podcast in America and seeing we don't have a chance tonight. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it. And then Matthew McConaughey comes in and he says, you got to lay that hard on the line. But whatever is We Are Marshall speech. And he gives that whole speech, but he equates it to Texas. And then Texas runs through the tunnel in the Cotton Bowl. Bevo is on the sidelines. We didn't even talk about Bevo being back on the sidelines. You don't think that's going to juice the boys up, seeing the Longhorn on the sidelines? And Texas is going to go out and win the football game. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Miracle. I'll say this. I'll close with this. If we beat the Russians in 1980, okay, Texas can beat Ohio State as a 5.5-point favorite. Don't forget that. Don't forget that.
I think that's the perfect way to end the show.
All right, Grant, take us out of here.
Guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Tanner and I appreciate you all being here. If you enjoyed that speech, you want to see more content, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. We'll be back on Thursday breaking down the NFL playoffs. We hope you guys enjoyed the games. We will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.